We're like a lot of other newspapers that cover elections and campaigns and races. We've done this for a long time. And you can go at it in a million different ways. And we probably will go at it in a million different ways. But there's one overarching objective that we try to reach. And that is to give readers enough information to make an intelligent decision. I mean, everything else is interesting. We do biographies, we do campaign finance reports, we look at backgrounds, we look at advertising, and of course we look at the issues, why they're running. We write lots of stories about all that. In the end, we either succeed or fail if the reader, the voter, has enough information or not to cast an intelligent vote. That's really the core of anybody's election coverage. On the other side of the divide is editorial, and there we make recommendations about individuals who we think ought to be elected, or we prefer, and or whether or not an initiative or a measure, one of the referenda-like issues or measures on the ballot should be approved by voters or not approved by voters. We try, to the extent that it is humanly possible, to avoid making these decisions on a personality basis. The way we do that is we have, our editorial board has positions strongly voiced, we think well thought out, that we've held, principles that we've held for decades. And we list the issues that we think are important. We go down a little checklist of where we are on those issues. And then when a person comes in to be interviewed and his opponent is interviewed, we after that will sit down and say, who is the candidate that agrees with us on these issues? And if you agree with us on the issues, you stand a very good chance of being endorsed. And if you don't, you might not be endorsed. But it's not a personal decision. We try to get away from that. We've got, we want to make sure that people do not believe that we endorse so-and-so because he's a friend of the editor, or she's a friend of the publisher, or that organization is a friend of the chairman of the company. We try to get rid of that completely if we can and just look at what are the issues, what do we believe, and who in this race agrees with our view of the issues. And that's how we do it. One question that comes up constantly is well, who specifically wrote the editorial? That's a question that we will not answer. And I'll tell you why. We have a 7-person editorial board. We have 3 principal writers who are also members of that board. The writers very often will be writing a view. Remember, the editorial is not an individual's view. It is the consensus view of that board, which is the view that represents the company. And the individual writer, whichever editorial writer is writing it, may not agree entirely with that view because it is a consensus and it's not dictated by any one individual. And so it would be unfair in the extreme to have this endorsement of that person by like a byline, like in a news story, because these people are paid, the editorial writers are paid to write the consensus view of the company. It may not be their view. Largely it is, but we've all had disagreements and we've all had to represent a consensus view. And that's the reason that we don't put those names on that. And of course, once we make an endorsement, we want everyone to know that whoever is not endorsed, we give space on that editorial page to respond. And you can make your case, your own case in your own words on that page.